Clan Forbes is a Lowland Scottish clan from Aberdeenshire, Scotland. History. Origins. The name Forbes is most probably a location name assumed from the lands of Forbes in Aberdeenshire, in possession of this family reputedly since the time of King William the Lion. While there are many legends surrounding the origins of this clan, the first person on record was Duncan Forbes, who in 1271–2 received a grant of land from Alexander III of Scotland. Cited by William Forbes' skein, the charter exists in the Forbes Charter chest in tattered but quite legible condition. The next mention is a John Forbes, whose name dates from a 1306 roll containing a list of demands by English and Scottish loyalists to Edward I of England for the forfeited lands of Scotsmen. The lands of John Forbes being demanded are requested by both a William Cummin and a Robert Shivel. The next name may be that of his son, Christian, who received a grant of 1/3 of the lands of Skeith and Ardig by King Robert the Bruce in 1326. But doubt still remains he was a Forbes or of this family, even though in the charter he is named Christian Forbes. The next name found in records is that of John Forbes Dominus Adjusdum, a Lord of Forbes. He witnessed two charters of Thomas, Earl of Mar in 1358 and 1359, and in 1364 King David II of Scotland confirmed a charter for the lands of Edinbankery and Craiglegy by Thomas, Earl of Mar, granting them to John de Forbes. He was Sheriff of Aberdeen in 1374. In 1378 a charter was granted to John and his wife Margaret by the Bishop of Moray for the lands of Fine Roussillon, the Loch of Spiny. At his death before the 20th of August 1387 he was described as a good man, wise, and mighty, a manly in his time. The son of the latter, Sir John de Forbes, Lord of Forbes, called Sir John of the Black Lip, was Justiciary and Coroner of Aberdeenshire. He married Elizabeth Kennedy, daughter of Sir Gilbert Kennedy of Dunure, and together they had 4 sons. For the 3 younger sons sprang several cadet lines. William was the progenitor of the Pitsligo line, John the ancestor of Tahaan line, while the houses of Scalater and Invernon were founded by Alistair of Brucks. Sir John died in 1406. 15th century. Sir John Forbes' son, Alexander Forbes, 1st Lord Forbes, fought at the Battle of Harlaw in 1411, in support of Alexander Stewart, Earl of Mar. Alexander had safe conduct from Henry V of England to visit his king, James I of Scotland, at Rouen in 1421, and was allowed as his escort to bring 40 pikemen and other followers up to 100 men. He married Elizabeth, daughter of George Douglas, 1st Earl of Angus, and his wife Mary, daughter of Robert III of Scotland. Together Alexander and Elizabeth had 5 children, including James II Lord Forbes. Alexander Forbes was raised to the peerage by James I as Baron Forbes between October 1444 and July 1445. Alexander Forbes, 1st Lord Forbes, died in 1448. James II Lord Forbes married Agidia, daughter of William Keith, 1st Earl Mariscal, and had 3 sons. William, the 3rd Lord Forbes, Duncan, ancestor of the Forbeses of Corsandire and Monymusk, and Patrick, ancestor of the Forbeses, Baronets of Craigweaver, now Lord Semple, and also of the Earls of Granard. Alexander, 4th Lord Forbes, was in arms with his clan to revenge the murder of James III, but after the defeat at Tillamoos he submitted to James IV. John, the 6th Lord, succeeded his brother Arthur, the 5th Lord Forbes, in 1493. In 1536 he was charged with treason and was imprisoned in Edinburgh Castle, but was honourably acquitted after a long period of confinement. John Forbes, Master of Forbes, his eldest surviving son and heir designate, was arrested with his father, also in charges of treason, and was condemned to be hanged, but due to his rank he was beheaded. 16th century. In 1529, Clan Forbes was involved in a feud with the citizens of Aberdeen, who withheld a sort of blackmail, a yearly ton of wine, for the fishings of the Don. In July 1530, Arthur Forbes of Brucks and his accomplices attacked Aberdeen. The citizens took arms and drove the invaders to Greyfriars Place. The street fights lasted 24 hours. One of Clan Forbes and some of the citizens were killed. A good many on both sides were wounded. Several of the inhabitants of Aberdeen and commissioners were sent to the king to lodge a complaint. On the 19th of December the following year, the magistrates served letters of law boroughs against Pitsligard, Tahaan Castle, Brucks, Echt, and other gentlemen of the name of Forbes, and Lord Pitsligo was obliged to find caution to the council at Perth for his own and friends' good behaviour towards the town of Aberdeen. At that time a deadly feud subsisted between Clan Forbes and Clan Leslie, and it is probable that some of the Aberdeen townspeople had interfered in that quarrel, which furiously raged throughout Aberdeenshire, and was attended by mutual massacres and murders. Throughout the 16th century the Clan Forbes were involved in a long and bitter struggle against the Clan Gordon. In the 1520s there were murders by both sides, and one of the most prominent killed by the Forbeses was Seaton of Meldrum, who was a close connection of the Earl of Huntly, chief of Clan Gordon. The Earl of Huntly then became involved in a plot against the Master of Forbes, who was the son of the 6th Lord Forbes. The 6th Lord Forbes had been heavily implicated of the murder of Seaton of Meldrum. The Master of Forbes was accused by the Earl of Huntly of conspiring to assassinate James V of Scotland in 1536 by shooting at him with a cannon. The Master of Forbes was tried and executed. However, just days later his conviction was reversed and the Forbes family was restored to favour. The Protestant Reformation added to the feud between the Clan Forbes and Clan Gordon in that the Gordons remained Catholic and the Forbeses became Protestant. The traditional enemies of the Forbeses, such as the Clan Leslie, Clan Irvine and Clan Seaton, sided with the Gordons, while Protestant families such as the Clan Keith, Clan Fraser and Clan Crichton sided with the Clan Forbes. 20 Gordons were killed at a banquet held at the Forbeses' Drumina Castle in 1571. Later in 1571 the feud climaxed with the Battle of Tilliangus, and the Battle of Crabeston, and Drumina, then the seat of the chief of Clan Forbes, was plundered. The Gordons followed this up with the massacre of 27 Forbeses of Towie at Corgarth Castle. It took 2 Acts of Parliament for the clans to put down their arms. 17th century. Alexander X, Lord Forbes, was a lieutenant general under Gustavus Adolphus during the 30 Years' War. On his return to Scotland he was given a commission and charged with suppressing uprisings in Ireland. He later retired to Germany and died on the 20th of April 1672 in Stockholm, Sweden. 18th century. During the Jacobite risings the Clan Forbes and the chief supported the British government. The Jacobites laid siege to the chief's historic seat of Culloden House in both the 1715 and 1745 risings. In September 1745, Duncan Forbes, Lord Culloden, a staunch Whig, was given a commission to raise 20 independent Highland companies to oppose the Jacobite rising of 1745. He succeeded in raising a total of 18 independent Highland companies to fight against the Jacobites' branches. The Lord Forbes of Pitsligo were descended from William, second son of Sir John Forbes of the Dilk, in the time of Robert II. Alexander, fourth Lord, was attainted after the Battle of Culloden, and living long secretly in one of his own gate lodges, died in 1762. Three families now claim the title. The Forbeses, Baronets of Craigweaver, a branch of the old house, Craigweaver Castle, sprang from Patrick Forbes, of course, armour-bearer to James III, and the Stuart Forbeses of Pitsligo, Baronets, from Duncan of Corsendie, second son of James, second Lord Forbes. The Eden Glassy Forbeses are also a branch of the parent stock. The Forbeses of Tahaan Castle, a very old branch, acquired that estate in 1420, and were progenitors of the Lairds of Culloden. Sir Alexander Forbes of Tahaan commanded a troop of cavalry in the Scots army at Worcester, and when the king's horse was shot, mounted him on his own, put his buff coat on a bloody scarf about him, and saw him safe out of the field. The fortunes of this house were probably consumed in the fever of the Darien scheme, in which Alexander Forbes of Tahaan appears to have embarked beyond his means, the stock he held having been judicially attached. Sir William Forbes, 8th Baronet of Craigweaver, in 1884 succeeded his kinswoman as Lord Semple, Chief of Clan Semple, Tartan, Clan Chief. Clan Chief Malcolm Forbes, 23rd Lord Forbes and Chief of the name and arms of Forbes. Castles that have been owned by the Clan Forbes have included amongst many others, Castle Hill at Drumina, 1.5 miles northeast of Rhynie, Aberdeenshire, was the site of the first stronghold on the lands, which the Forbeses held from 1271 to 1440. They then moved to Drumina Castle. Drumina Castle, 1 mile southeast of Rhynie, Aberdeenshire, consists of a keep and tower that has been much altered and was first built by the Forbeses in the 15th century. It was modified in the 16th century when it was made into an L-plan, and there have also been later alterations. The Forbeses feuded with the Leslies, Settons and the powerful Clan Gordon, and 20 Gordons were killed at a banquet held at Drumina Castle in 1571. In 1770 Drumina Castle was sold and the Forbes family moved to Castle Forbes. Castle Forbes, a few miles northeast of Alford, Aberdeenshire, was once a tower house but was replaced with a large castellated mansion of 1815. Craigweaver Castle, 4.5 miles southwest of Alford, Aberdeenshire, was built by the Forbeses. It is an L-plan tower house of 7 stories. The castle was actually started by the Mortimer family, but they ran out of money and it was completed by the Forbeses. The castle was taken over by the National Trust for Scotland in 1963 and is now open to the public. Tahaan Castle, 4 miles east of Old Meldrum, Aberdeenshire, is a ruinous keep and courtyard castle. The original castle was built by the Prestons of Craigmillar, but it passed by marriage to the Forbeses in 1420 and they completed the castle. Sir Alexander Forbes, 6th Laird of the castle, was killed at the Battle of Pinkie Cleugh in 1547. The present castle as it is now was built by William Forbes, the 7th Laird. The 10th Forbes Laird of Tahaan saved Charles II of England's life at the Battle of Worcester in 1651. In 1716 the Forbeses sold the castle to the Farquhars because they had debts as a result of being involved in the Darien scheme, but the 11th Forbes Laird had to be forcibly removed from the castle by a detachment of soldiers in 1718. Corgarth Castle is in a remote spot 10 miles northwest of Ballater, Aberdeenshire, and is a tall tower house. It is 4 stories high and dates from the 16th century. It is the site of one of the most infamous events of the bitter feud between the Clan Forbes and Clan Gordon. Adam Gordon of Auchindoun and a force ravaged through the Forbeses' lands and besieged the castle that was held by 26 women. children and servants, with the men being away. Margaret Campbell, wife of Forbes of Towie, refused to surrender the castle, and Gordon of Auchindoun lost patience when she shot one of his men in the knee. Gordon then torched the building, which went up in flames, killing everyone inside. Culloden House at Culloden, Highland, near Inverness, mostly dates from the 18th century but stands on the site of a strong tower house which was formerly held by the Macintoshes and Edmonstones, but was sold to the Forbeses in 1626. It was the seat of Duncan Forbes, Lord Culloden, who supported the British Hanoverian government during the Jacobite Rising of 1745 and who was present at the Battle of Culloden. However, he later protested against the terrible treatment that was given out to Jacobite prisoners after the battle. After the battle, many wounded Jacobites had been brought to the house, but those who were not shot had their heads bashed in with musket butts.